Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andriy Shevchenko, and on behalf of Media Center Ukraine, I would like to greet all those who cover our fight for freedom. And today we have a very special guest here at this location. I'm happy to introduce Ambassador of France to Ukraine, His Excellency Etienne, Etienne de Poncins. Thanks for coming. Ambassador, what do you have to say to Ukraine on day 26 of the Russian invasion into Ukraine?
Добрий день, пані та панове. Thank you very much for inviting me in Ukraine and in this very special city of Lviv. On the 26th day after the aggression from Russia, I want to tell the Ukrainian people that we are still present, the French embassy, we are still present in Lviv, that you continue to mark our solidarity, and our presence here is a strong signal of support and of friendship towards the Ukrainian government and towards the Ukrainian people. I am here in Lviv for now several days with a very small team of about 10 personnel, and we are working very hard to bring support to your country, which has been attacked, and also to maintain the political dialogue that we have put in place with Ukrainian authorities and especially with President Zelensky for now months and even years. So our work continues. We will remain in Lviv. We will continue this work in the coming days and weeks, and we expect that in the coming days we will be in capacity to demonstrate our very strong solidarity following the arrival in Poland of a massive humanitarian aid that will cross in the coming days, will cross the border and will bring support to the population.
What is your assessment of the situation at the moment?
We are, I think that all my fellow countrymen, French is absolutely impressed by the courage of the Ukrainian people, of the Ukrainian population. Yesterday I was outside Lviv. I visited Drogobych and Truskavets, and I could see how all the nations, the Ukrainian nation, is staying united to fight and to try to overcome the aggression that I mentioned before. This is a very moving moment for being a French ambassador to Ukraine, and this is really what we feel from the heart, the solidarity with your people, and also the impressive, courageous attitude of all the Ukrainian population.
We'll now be ready to take questions from the floor, and the rest of this press conference will be conducted in French with consecutive translation into Ukrainian and English. And I'm ready to take this first question from here. And feel free to ask a question in Ukrainian or English, or I suppose French as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry not to speak Ukrainian, but I'm from La Repubblica. My question is about the negotiations. What is your impression? How are the negotiations between Ukrainians and Russians going on? Because today there should be a second round and another round. Thank you.
Nous suivons les négociations, mais ce n'est pas aujourd'hui la tâche. Identifier les besoins et puis après de réceptionner l'aide et enfin de maintenir ce contact politique.
Звичайно, ми Of course, we follow the course of negotiations, but this is not the main mission of our embassy. Our main mission is about helping French citizens who would like to get evacuated from Ukraine. And secondly, our mission is to provide humanitarian aid. We follow carefully the needs that Ukraine has, and we are trying to make sure that humanitarian convoy hits Ukrainian borders.
Use the mic. Where is it? We need that for our interpreters, yes.
Mr. Ambassador, could you explain, could you detail what you were saying about this aid coming in? What exactly is it? How big is it, and who is it for?
There is a big bulk of aid coming this week through an airlift transportation, arriving probably in Lublin or Przemyśl next days, probably in the coming days. And in addition to that, we will get some ambulance and fire trucks equipment, which all those kind of equipment are highly needed by the Ukrainian side. Our position is to respond to Ukrainian demands. So first we are here to check what are the needs, and then we try to provide for that support through our colleagues in Paris.
Please.
Mr. Ambassador, is France planning on taking any refugees that have fled? Over 3 million refugees.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, yes, we were taking a lot. My president has announced that we will be ready up to 100,000, if I'm not mistaken, of Ukrainian being hosted in France. In France, there is a big movement of solidarity towards this population in need. So yes, we are organizing ourselves to accept and to welcome a lot of people who have fled the country. Yeah. Definitely, yes.
Next question in the last row, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Cao Jie from Phoenix TV, Hong Kong. Actually, my friends living in Germany and France told me they saw lots of the panic buyers in the cities. They bought the foods, waters, and some medicines just in case of any nuclear radiation. So how seriously do you worry about any possible nuclear war or the end of the war? And also, I want to know, how do you think of the President Macron's diplomacy? Because I noticed that some Western media said President Macron used the shuttle diplomacy to try to persuade President Putin to stop thinking about attacking Ukraine, but he failed. What do you think about that? Thank you.
D'accord. Alors, je ne sais pas si votre collègue va comprendre.
I would suggest that we'll allow the ambassador to use the language that he chooses, and we'll stick with Ukrainian and English as our two working languages. But I think we could do some follow-ups after this press conference is complete.
Non, mais je vais répondre en français, effectivement, parce qu'il y a une demande. Merci à vous. Sur la question nucléaire, c'est évidemment une question, comme vous le savez, qui est une source de préoccupation depuis plusieurs jours, voire semaines, notamment depuis que les centrales de Tchernobyl et de Zaporizhzhia ne sont plus entre les mains des autorités ukrainiennes. Vous savez aussi que notre président, le président Emmanuel Macron, a fait des propositions à travers l'agence de l'énergie atomique pour sécuriser ces centrales.
If you allow me, I will answer in French because that was a request. Nuclear threat is very concerning to all of us. It has been concerning, especially since Chernobyl nuclear power plant and Zaporizhia nuclear power plant are not under control of Ukrainian government. President Macron made a proposal through International Atomic Energy Agency so that we can protect both strategic facilities so that the population doesn't suffer from possible radiation leak.
Avec à la fois le président Zelensky, puisqu'il y a un contact presque, en tout cas bi-hebdomadaire entre les deux dirigeants, mais aussi avec le président Poutine, à la fois pour faire aboutir un cessez-le-feu et prévenir les situations humanitaires dramatiques que connaît l'Ukraine. Et ce canal continuera, même si jusqu'à présent, comme vous le savez, il n'a pas été conclusif.
President Macron had a number of calls with Chancellor Scholz. They stay in touch. That was the decision. They also stay in touch with President Zelensky, so they have regular calls twice a week, but they also keep communication channels open with the President Putin so that we can prevent humanitarian crisis.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Nortok Niswe.
The next one?
Est-ce que vous pouvez répéter la question pour que je la traduise pour le public? Madame, vous qui avez posé la question, est-ce qu'on pouvait la répéter pour que je traduise?
Non, c'était le collègue de Hong Kong.
I suggest we proceed with the next question.
Okay.
Please. C'est bon? Yes, go ahead.
Je suis du quotidien japonais. Et je voudrais savoir votre explication sur la coopération entre la France et la Russie sur le nucléaire. Et d'autres activités s'arrêtent quasiment et ça continue comme avant. Et comment vous expliquez ce fait?
My question is about cooperation between Russia and France in nuclear aspect.
Donc je réponds sur les questions liées à l'Ukraine.
I am the ambassador of France to Ukraine. I'm not ambassador of France to Russia. That's why I answer only questions regarding Ukraine, not Russia.
Le nombre de Français actuellement en Ukraine, dans les différentes régions, on pense notamment à Kherson où il y avait 2 Français qui étaient recensés. Voilà, qu'en est-il des Français en Ukraine aujourd'hui?
Do you have exact statistics about the number of French citizens who stay in Ukraine at the moment? We know that there were 2 French citizens in Kherson.
Nous avons recommandé fortement aux Français de quitter l'Ukraine. Il y avait à ce moment-là environ 1700 Français sur le territoire ukrainien. Depuis 1400 ont quitté, et nous avons accompagné dans cette démarche, ont quitté le territoire ukrainien. Donc il en resterait quelques centaines ou quelques dizaines. C'est compliqué d'avoir des chiffres exacts. Nous suivons les cas individuels, certains que vous avez mentionnés. Mais globalement, nous considérons que l'essentiel des Français qui souhaitaient quitter l'Ukraine sont désormais partis.
The moment when our government insisted that French citizens leave Ukraine, there were around 1,700 French citizens in Ukraine. 1,400 left since then, and we provided assistance to those who wanted to leave the country and who did so. At the moment, according to our estimates, there are between a few hundreds to a few dozen citizens who are still in Ukraine. It's hard to say for sure. We follow individual cases like the one you mentioned earlier, but the main number of French citizens had left Ukraine.
Next question.
Last one.
Добрий день, пане посол.
I have a question for you. France, together with China, were one of the observers in Budapest Memorandum, which is dubious in nature. What are the security guarantees that France can provide to Ukraine given this fully-fledged war?
De la Chine ont été deux pays observateurs du mémorandum de Budapest. À votre avis, quelles sont les garanties que la France pourrait actuellement, garanties de sécurité que la France pourrait actuellement accorder à l'Ukraine dans les conditions de cette ample guerre?
Sous réserve, la France n'était pas au mémorandum de Budapest, je crois pas.
Франція була. Я не пригадую, що Франція була в Будапештському.
I'm not sure France was part of Budapest Memorandum, but both France and China, being nuclear countries, they were observers.
Qui est un pays nucléaire, la France a été observatrice sur ce mémorandum, sur ce traité.
Ok, non, mais je ne souhaite pas me prononcer sur ce type de questions qui dépassent ma compétence.
На жаль, я не можу
Unfortunately, I cannot answer this question because it's outside my competence and my authority.
More questions on the ground?
Ще є питання, будь ласка.
Maybe we'll take the last one.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Once again, Mr. Ambassador, what is the French government's position on war crimes being committed by the Russian military on the territory of Ukraine?
Nous avons dit que nous suivions de façon très, très précise cette question et nous relevons notamment tout ce qui peut être effectivement considéré comme des crimes de guerre à travers les informations que nous pouvons recevoir soit en direct, soit par les autorités ukrainiennes. C'est sur cette thématique-là que nous avons un dialogue constant avec les autorités ukrainiennes.
We carefully follow this issue and we keep track and collect evidence of everything that can be considered as a war crime, atrocity crime. We get information from direct sources and from Ukrainian government that we constantly stay in touch with regarding atrocities.
After February the 24th, more than 800 foreign journalists have been accredited here in the city of Lviv, and France is actually one of the leading countries supplying media representatives and journalists to this country and to the city. If you have a word to your fellow countrymen working for French media or for media presented here in general, that's the moment to do so.
Je suis un peu divisé sur cette question parce que notre recommandation, c'est, y compris pour les journalistes, aux Français de ne pas se rendre en Ukraine. Donc c'est un peu après délicat de les accueillir, puisque c'est une recommandation que nous passons d'ailleurs à leur direction parisienne. Je crois qu'ils le savent tous.
I'm a little bit divided when you ask me this question, because on one side we insist that our journalists do not show up in hot places, hot points, because it's dangerous, and we always try to insist that they do not go wherever it's dangerous. But those journalists who I have met, I understand that they didn't follow our recommendations.
Chaleureusement.
Але це не заважає, звичайно, їх вітати.
But I'm happy to see them here. So and
Much merci beaucoup. C'est un grand plaisir pour nous. À bientôt. Ladies and gentlemen, this completes Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start our next event. And our next guest is Anдрій Демченко, press officer of the State Border Service. And we are going to talk about the key challenges that the State Border Service is dealing with these days. First, they have to deal with real-time combat situations in many places or around the country. And second, they have to deal with tremendous humanitarian pressure on the western border, which is now a place for massive flow of people and goods in both directions. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Anдрій Демченко, press secretary of the Ukrainian State Border Service. I'm going to switch into Ukrainian. Those of you who need translation, please use one of our headphones, and we'll have a chance to take questions from this venue, and your questions will be translated into Ukrainian, and you will get simultaneous translation back to you, if necessary.
Andrei, I will start off with the combat question. Could you give us an update? How much State Border Guard Service of Ukraine are involved in the combat, in active hostilities, Ukraine-wide? As you probably know, on the 24th of February, State Border Guard Service of Ukraine were the first to meet the active fire from the Russian Federation, and they are deployed at the state borders of Ukraine. There was also the active movement of machinery and the troops on the border of Belarus, Russia, and administrative border from the temporarily occupied Crimean territory. Our forces had to regroup, and they had to merge with the armed forces of Ukraine, the National Guard of Ukraine, in order to hold back the enemy. State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, they are working together with the armed forces. They are working in Sumy, Kharkiv, Chernihiv regions, Kharkiv region, Crimea, Luhansk region. Daily, they are subjected to enemy's attacks that keep shelling. They use artillery. There are also subversive sabotage reconnaissance groups, but the morale is high. And they hold back the enemy. They stop the convoys of armored vehicles. They destroy them. They detain subversive reconnaissance and sabotage groups. They are also working in Mariupol. They hold back the enemy. The situation is dire there because the city is completely besieged at the moment. That's our motherland. And we are there to protect it. And we are grateful to Ukrainian people for support, for helping us to defend our motherland. We keep following the situation on Belarus border. The Belarus territory has been used for the past weeks in order to make advances in Ukraine. And we keep receiving messages from Kyiv that the risk of direct invasion or direct involvement of Belarus in this war is very high. What does that mean for State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, and how prepared you are to respond to different scenarios in Belarus border? Our reconnaissance, our intelligence, and our armed forces keep track of the situation of what's happening in Ukraine-Belarus border. Belarus is under influence of Russia, and it's been used as the platform for the Russian aviation, for shelling, and some convoys go from Belarus to Chernihiv. In other areas, Rivne and Volyn, our State Border Guard Service of Ukraine understand how high the risk is and that they might use other routes in order to invade and in order to attack. And we understand that chances that Belarus troops might be involved are realistic. We are looking forward to holding them back and to destroying them, just like we do to other Russian troops, wherever they are. But I just hope that the people of Belarus are sensible and they understand the situation they find themselves in, the situation that their president put them in, and they will withhold this attack and they will not participate in this war. A few days ago, there was a video footage which went viral on the internet. Ukrainian border guard officer gives 30 silver coins to the ambassador of Belarus. As an ex-ambassador, I understand that this is not a typical situation. Why such symbolic gesture was very important. The head of SBGU of Ukraine, when Russia invaded Ukraine using Belarus territory, he even sent a formal letter to his, the so-called colleague, who was General Lieutenant Laku, where he expressed his indignation that State Border Guard Service of Belarus admit such actions. What happened a few days ago, that was yet another demonstration of the relations to the border guards of Belarus, because the diplomats were leaving, crossing the border of Moldova, and that was yet another attitude that was shown to them. What message were you trying to sell? That they are traitors, they are not State Border Guard Service, and they are not doing what they are supposed to be doing, because they let their borders to be used in order to invade into Ukraine. What is the situation in the west border of Ukraine? This border is now under the active influx of Ukrainian refugees. There is also very active movement of cargo, humanitarian aid, people, vehicles. What is the situation? Could you provide us the update? Day 3 and day 4 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the influx of people rocketed. These people were trying to flee the war. Until the 24th of February, the borders with EU, I mean western borders, was crossed by 50,000 people, so the figures rose to 130,000 people. People were trying to flee Ukraine. Recently, we have been observing fewer people willing to cross the border. I would say 70 to 80,000 people are now crossing the borders with EU using border crossing points. And the lines are not so long. We are trying to analyze the situation on all border crossing points in the west of Ukraine. I know that in peak days there was between 3,000 to 5,000 people waiting in line in order to cross the border. Ukraine is grateful to our partners, European Union in particular, so that they lifted the formalities and they assisted women and children to cross the border. they lifted the requirements. So these people may not even have traveling document like international passport and special permissions to take children across the border. So identification of the person could have been done using national ID. So this simplification of procedure and lifting the formalities and requirements allowed many people to cross the border faster and expedite the procedure. If you have any questions, we are ready.
And your question will be translated into Ukrainian.
Thank you very much. I would a few days ago, the Ukrainian government reported that about 320,000 people, Ukrainian people, came back to Ukraine. I would like to know if he's so kind to update this number, and how many of them, if this is possible to know, were voluntarily enlisted to the army to help the country to fight Russia. Thank you.
At the moment, we know that people are not only trying to leave Ukraine, but they also are coming back into Ukraine. Starting from the 24th of February until today, around 400,000 people crossed the border from EU to Ukraine. 75 to 80% these are men. We do not necessarily ask them why they came back to Ukraine, but I'm positive that majority of them, when we were interviewing them at the border, and also there were media representatives who were trying to interview them, asking why they are coming back, especially men, so they made it very clear that they cannot live in Europe or other countries. They cannot just be observers from overseas. They want to join armed forces of Ukraine or territorial defense units or other voluntary units, or they will be assisting in order to contribute to this common victory.
Many Ukrainians who became internally displaced persons signed up as reservists in the places of their new locations. That includes the city of Lviv and the oblast, and we are in the four-digit territories, in the four-digit territory in terms of numbers. So that means that we have families, we have people who had to leave east of the country or Kyiv or some other regions of active combat to bring here families, and here they signed up for territorial defense or for armed forces to make sure that they do their job to defend the country. Чи є ще запитання? Прошу.
Доброго дня. Таке питання.
In a lot of border crossing points, people can cross by car, by bus, but they cannot walk across the border. Why so? So pedestrian crossing is prohibited. We have an agreement with EU countries. So people can cross, they can walk across the border, but most border crossing points with EU countries, they are first of all, they have the status of vehicle border crossing point and not pedestrian border crossing point.
He explained that they were working hard to find sabotage and infiltrators around the border. I want to know if they also make this effort in the western regions, because I'm sure that there are, for example, shipments of aid, also military aid, but also, I don't know, any kind of movement that can be a target for Russians. Is this work, is this effort to find infiltrators and people giving information to the Russians also hard, important to do in the western borders? Thank you.
Yes, we counter subversive and sabotage groups. We do it in cooperation with State Border Guard Service and Security Service of Ukraine and National Police of Ukraine. We try to detain those people who are trying to cross the border, the western border, whether they are trying to get into the country or out of the country. So we are trying to find out those people who are working for the enemy. And of course we have outcomes, positive outcomes, success stories. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose this information for obvious reasons. Thank you, Andriy. This brief is over, and we are grateful to all as State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, officers of Ukraine, and thank you for standing with Ukraine, and thank you for what you do. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this is day 26 of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and this is the media center. My name is Anдрій Демченко. I'm the moderator of this center, and I'd like to welcome our guest, our special guest, Svyatoslav Vakarchuk, singer, activist. In the past few weeks, Svyatoslav traveled thousands of kilometers. He was providing his support to armed forces of Ukraine, our warriors, our soldiers, all those who repel the attacks of the enemy and fight for freedom. I'm not sure whether it's going to be an interview or just sharing my thoughts. Andriy asked me why I came to Lviv, what I brought to Lviv. It's hard to remember what exactly I brought to Lviv because I've traveled thousands of kilometers. I visited military hospitals wherever it was possible, wherever it was safe. I met tons of people personally. I think that in the past few weeks, I met more people than I've met in the past 10 years. I met people in gas stations, in the city centers, people who need help. I help people who I came across in Lviv railway station. I help them connect with their family in Zaporizhia. I help people in the gas station. I actually assisted them in finding lodging in the west of Ukraine. It's not my objective, it's not my activity. It's kind of what I do because it's important. You know that during war, besides weapons and courage and resistance of our warriors, we have another type of weapon. So this is support and emotional support. All Ukrainians demonstrate high morale, support, and respect for each other. I'm here for 2 days, for a mere 2 days. Half a day I already spent doing other things. I volunteer, but I'll talk about that later. But using the opportunity that I'm in Lviv, I'd like to express my gratitude to the residents of Western Ukraine on behalf of the rest of Ukraine, because they opened the door to more than 200,000 refugees from all over Ukraine. Hundreds of thousands of other refugees stayed here for a while and then they moved on to other countries. So I really appreciate their patience, their understanding, their fraternity. I understand that sometimes it might not be convenient to host a refugee. It might not be convenient when someone is living in your home, but we are one family. And a good word, support, a smile, an embrace. It is as powerful as material support or cohesive military actions. Starting from the front line in Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, and today I was in Novoyavorivsk. I met our soldiers who are in the training facility, international training facility that you all know about, which is 15 miles from Polish border. So they all are elated in their spirit and they all are positive that we will win, be it Kharkiv, be it Lviv, be it elsewhere. And no one doubts our victory because we all feel that we are at home. This is other land. We are 200% right in this war because we are fighting against the darkness, against evil, against monster. Maybe I'm a little bit emotional, a little bit poetic, but I believe that Ukraine is a little bit lyric and poetic these days. So it reminds us of protagonists of Byron and Shevchenko poems who keep inspiring us and let us move forward. Day 1, day 2 of our resistance against Russian aggressor, even before the war, a lot of military experts, analysts doubted Ukrainian resistance. They said that Ukraine probably will not manage to resist. But we understand that almost a month passed. And we all understand that Ukraine not only did not surrender, but everything will be all right. We all need to be patient. And we all need to understand that trying to stop the enemy, we need to move to positional fights, because Russian troops did not occupy a single major city of Ukraine, I mean, with the population of 1 million people and more. And I hope that with assistance of our and support of our Western partners and the sanctions that they impose, we will definitely manage to win. When people ask you about your tour in the East, South, North, so what comes across your mind? What do you remember first? What comes into your memory? So I'm trying to remember some of the flashbacks. Maybe Zaporizhia Children's Hospital. That was maybe the direst image that I've seen in my life, because these children were wounded. They were on the verge of life and death. The humanitarian corridor was organized, but the Russian army killed them. I think that they behave as Nazis, if no worse, because this is the 21st century and there is no forgiveness to these people. Second image that comes to my mind, this is Kharkiv underground station. It's crowded, it's full of people. People sleep in underground carriages, train carriages, and they do their job. So during the day they'd go up and they do what they can. At night they would go down to the underground station to sleep. Odessa, another scene that I remember. All people, from average residents to the soldiers, so they all try to use their sense of humor. You all know this famous quotation, Russian warship, go and yourself. And Odessa even actually changed this quote, Russian warship. Have you already reached your destination? Odessa loves cracking jokes. There are lots of people, politicians and average people, who actually are there in the center of resistance. And another image that comes to my mind, it's kind of collective image. It's not related to a single city in particular. People who see me, so they say, "Can I hug you?" And I think this feeling of unity, of unitedness, is really important, because if you see someone you know, even if you don't know the person personally, you want to hug that person. There are 3 songs. Я не здамся без бою, it's I won't give up without fight, hug me. Are you surprised that the whole world admires Ukraine and Ukrainians? Brave people have always been admired. It's not easy to be brave, and it's not easy, and it's not always, it pays to be brave. Ukraine is in the front line of the whole democratic community, global democratic community. Sometimes we are a little bit disappointed that the assistance we receive is not timely or is not in the scope that we expect. We don't expect that other representatives of other countries will be here with us protecting our motherland. But we all understand that if it comes to worst case scenario, which I hope will not, and Russia manages to do what they want to do, Ukraine will only be the beginning, and all other countries, all other armies that are still taking their time and thinking whether to help or not, they will have to fight for their motherland, for their country, and then the price they will pay will be much higher. I think that our courage, our bravery did a lot today, but bravery alone is not enough. We need bravery of our partners, Western politicians, who should not only listen to what our president is asking, but they also have to listen to their electorate. Most people, almost all people from Western world, they support us and they all insist that their leadership helps us with intelligence, with sanctions, with weapons. That's why my message to the world is simple. We are happy that you admire us. It's really nice of you. But we need practical support. This is anti-aircrafts, defense, stricter sanctions, and influence on big business, big corporations that still decided to continue doing business in Russia. For example, Citibank. It's a very influential, reputable organization worldwide. Some do it directly, some indirectly fund Russian troops who are now killing our women and children. Do we have questions? I have a question.
Address our audience abroad, and as many of us know, you have plenty of friends, people who know you outside of Ukraine. So I would like you to use this opportunity and say a word to them. Why the world should care, and why they should care about what is happening in Ukraine.
First of all, Ukraine today, it's not just the battlefield for Ukrainian future. Ukraine today is the battlefield for the world, free world future. All the principles that were created by our predecessors in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in France, in all the other democratic countries, all the principles, all democratic background now is questioned by one man or maybe nation that supports this man, who want to live with different rules, where freedom means nothing, where dignity means nothing, where person lives for a state, not a state lives for person. They want to impose an Orwellian world, not only in Ukraine, but everywhere else. And if they will be allowed to do this, to do it in Ukraine, you shouldn't have any doubt. They will go further, further, and further. This reminds me, to a great extent, of events that took place almost a century ago in the 20th century in Europe, when another dictator who was dare enough to break the European world order wasn't stopped until it became clear that he is a threat to every person in the free world. It was too late to stop him with early means. And Hitler, I'm talking about him and his Third Reich, they created such a havoc and such devastating and destructive situation in the world that many, many decades ago after, we felt the aftermath and impact of that. Today's situation is very, very much similar. And you shouldn't have illusions that the world is different today. We also thought the world was different today before the day of the February 24th. We also thought that European nations, which call themselves our brothers, will not have desire and will not decide to invade a free and absolutely innocent country, and will not kill our children, our women, will not shell our maternity houses, will not share our care houses, will not deliberately fight the humanitarian corridors and everything else, all the atrocities they do. It very much reminds me of what had happened in the 1938, 1937, then in Europe, when first Hitler annexed Austria, then he annexed Sudeten and Czechoslovakia. The world was waiting, waiting, waiting. And then in 1939, the World War two occurred. So now when world politicians tell us they want to interfere more, for example, impose non-fly zone over Ukraine because they are afraid that it's gonna sparkle World War III, I will tell you, in my opinion, the opposite is the truth. If you don't interfere seriously to full extent now, later you will pay a big price for that. And your people in your countries, I know it, in America I talk to them, in Europe, in many countries, they all support Ukraine. So what we need now is a political courage of European leaders to do more than is done now. Having said that, I still need to say that we are very grateful for all support that already had been given to Ukraine. We are all very grateful for countries like Poland and our neighbors, Romania, Slovakia, our other neighbors of Ukraine, who opened their doors and who accepted so many and embraced really so many millions of our refugees. We're really grateful for that. We're also thankful for all military and economic support that has given, that many countries are giving to Ukraine. This is very, very important, and it really makes a difference. But my message is that probably it's still not enough. We will win. We will overcome. But we don't want to pay the price of Ukraine being completely ruined by Russians' evil. And you need to do anything that decreases the chance that Russia will win. And together we stand, divided we fall. This is a famous slogan everybody knows. So my message is, please stand by Ukraine, stand with Ukraine, stay behind Ukraine. Thank you.
Моє останнє... є запитання? Прошу.
Hi, my name is Carrie Kellerlin from the Times of Israel. I understand that you're using your platform to go on this sort of goodwill tour within Ukraine and to raise awareness. Do you have any other plans for using your platform to bring this message internationally?
We would like to use any platform which works. I personally and our band receive a lot of invitations to play in the concerts, charity gigs all over the world, to create awareness, to create exposure to what's going on to Ukraine, and also to collect donations and to have to have a lot of charity. Unfortunately, because we have a war situation now, and now I'm as a man, I'm a military obliged to stay here. It's very difficult for me to go out. Maybe we'll find some solution for that, but me personally, I don't want to go because I'm here with my people. I want to fight. So maybe we'll participate in some online events as well. I'm trying to use my name to create a sort of humanitarian and charity platform around. Some of Western Ukrainian, and not only Western Ukrainian businessmen already created a foundation which already bought a lot of medical equipment, medicine, but most importantly, medical and surgical equipment for Ukrainian hospitals. I've been to most of them. I know personally the presidents or directors of these hospitals. So we'll try to, and I think we'll make it together. On behalf of my name, we'll create this kind of humanitarian charity aid to all these hospitals. But not only hospitals, I'm very eager to help to our army, not only spiritual but material way. We are now trying to figure out what should be done to make it in the most proper way.
У мене останнє запитання буде. Які стосунки у
My last question, what is the relationship between music and war? Music, as any art, required catharsis. Music is catharsis. But I have so little time to spend to look into myself. I undersleep. I sleep 3 to 4 hours a day. People say that I have ash on my face. I didn't have time to wash my face. I don't create these days because it's not the time. But I created a few poems. One poem is about why my hatred is so strong. And also I created another poem, which I'm going to translate it to English. The first verse is, how many children do you need to kill? That's going to be my appeal to those whose support we need. Thank you very much to everybody. Let's stay together, let's be safe, take care of your dearest and nearest, and let's protect our country. Thank you. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you. Svyatoslav Vakarchuk, singer, activist, and fighter for